Hi everyone, I'm j.f.penn from thecreativepenn.com, and today I'm talking about how I'm writing scenes now. So the blog for me is, obviously want to help you guys, but it's also a really good way for me to track my own progress as a writer and I guess where I am on the journey. And in some ways it's going to be nice to look back at this in years to come when I'm obviously much more successful than I am now, and be able to say, this is how I used to do things and how things have changed or improved. So I've obviously finished Pentecost last year and I'm currently writing Prophecy, which is the next one in the series. And I'm finding that I'm writing quite differently than I did on the first book, Pentecost. So I guess I didn't really know what I was doing at the beginning of that book. And at one point the penny dropped about writing scenes. And so I thought I would tell you a bit about how I'm writing scenes at the moment. So first of all, I come up with a basic idea for a scene and I have roughly plotted maybe around 20 big scenes. And when I say plotted, I mean really basic one-liners. So for example, my protagonist is called Morgan Sierra and she's going to be kidnapped. So my scene outline might be Morgan is kidnapped by the bad guys. At this point I'm not going to tell you too much detail. So anyway, then I start to think about this and it stays in my head, and I think about what will happen, obviously, and also the point of the scene. So we don't just write anything, it has to move the story forward. I want to outline, tell more about the characters. Obviously in a kidnapping scene we have the stakes go up, because there's a life in danger. We get to see how Jake, Morgan's partner in Arcane, how he reacts to it, and also it gives me more ideas for future scenes. So anyway, I think about that for a while and let that I just think about those things. I also decide on the setting, and in thrillers setting is really important. So I have to have big settings for my books. It's one of the things that I love personally. I'm a real travel addict. So I decide on my setting, and last month, the month before, whatever, I was in Paris and I was in the Louvre, and I think it's a brilliant venue. I like things to be cinematic in the visual sense. So I've got a room, a massive sort of room that's open, almost open to the sky, glass at the top obviously, and that's going to be the room where I set things. So I decide on the setting and then I literally let that compost and I daydream and I come up with the ideas when I'm about to go to sleep, and I think about it for a while. So I normally have 4 or 5 scenes that are sort of percolating over in my head. Some people say they see it run like a movie. It's more like I'm standing in this place and I'm looking around. What can I see? Who's there? So I guess it's kind of like a movie, but I'm making it up. Okay, then I also decide whose point of view it's going to be written from. So as a thriller writer, I generally look at writing scenes from multiple points of view. So I have most of my scenes written by in the point of view of Morgan or Jake, who are my main characters, but I also have scenes written from the point of view of the antagonist, who's a real bad guy in this one, who's really fun to write in his head. You can indulge all those weird things. And also, I guess I have to decide whose angle is going to get it. So, of course, if Morgan's being kidnapped, I could write from her point of view or from the point of view of somebody else who's watching it unfold. So after I kind of get to the point and I feel like I have to write this stuff down, I almost have to get to that point at the moment, and I don't have much time. My day job has gone crazy and all of this stuff, but I have to sit down and I write that whole scene out, and my scenes are around 2,000 words, so I make sure I do 2,000 words for the scene. So, and as I'm writing, I come up with other things. So I think, oh, well, what would have been there and how would that have happened? And, I actually write out the whole thing. I'm also still listening to rain on my iPod because it's not raining here in England, surprisingly enough. It's summer. So I'm still listening to rain, which is really relaxes me, puts me in that kind of mood. I'm also, which is quite different to Pentecost, I'm adding in details as I write. So, for example, I was writing a scene this morning about some bonsai trees don't ask where that's going to come in, but it is. And I don't really know much about bonsai, except I really like them. I like the look of them and things. So I went and researched that in the middle of writing my scene. Now, I was using Write or Die last time, which is, enables you to write fast and not edit yourself. But this time I'm using Scrivener, which is brilliant software, and I'm finding that I want to fill in some of the detail as I write. I actually do want to fill in the blanks. So when I wrote Pentecost, it took me maybe 7 or 8 drafts. I can't remember how many. It was a lot of drafts to get it right, because I found I hadn't fleshed out enough. And I also did get the feedback that some of the scenes were too rushed. There wasn't enough, I don't want to use the word padding, but there wasn't enough buffering of information for people to feel that they were really into the story. So I'm making sure that that's addressed in this one. So I may go back and use Write or Die if I need to, write something fast and get over myself. But at the moment I am trying to put in the extra detail as I write. I also wanted to mention that I'm using Flickr, flickr.com a lot as a way of helping me with description. So for example, I'm writing a lot about bones. I'm using bones in my locations and things, and you can't keep saying the word bones over and over again. You've got to come up with different words, different colours that bones are, which is quite difficult, obviously. So I use Flickr for that. If you go onto Flickr and just Google bones, go onto Flickr and type in bones, you'll see all the different images that comes up, and it really helps you come up with like a mind map of descriptions. Anyway, just a little thing I do. Then to end the scene, I've got to have a page turner. This is a thriller. I want to keep you up all night. So I need to make sure that at the end of each scene, I'm putting in something that will make you go, right, I want to turn the page. And if I come up with that at the end of the scene as I'm writing it, it also enables me to have the idea of what the next scene is. So it's a kind of self-perpetuating thing until the story's done. So I think at the moment I'm like a plotter and a discovery writer at the same time, which is a nice place to be. I've got my big plot points, and then in that I'm writing the scenes, and then they're spawning new little things within it. And the bonsai thing was interesting, because that was an idea that was randomly walking along South Bank in London, and I saw this thing and it reminded me of something else, and then so that was never in my plan, but it's just arrived as something interesting. So yeah, I think the process is definitely unfolding. The last thing I wanted to say was that I am definitely backing everything up. I'm still getting emails from people who lose work, so please don't do that. Save everything. As soon as you finish writing, save it, back it up. I also don't reread my scenes at the moment. I'm writing my first draft. I'm not editing. So I'm writing a good scene, so I'm happy with the scene. I'm spending maybe 2 to 3 hours on the scene, and then I'm putting it aside and I will come back to it in the second draft. So that's pretty much how I'm writing my scenes at the moment. If you don't quite get the idea of scene and you want that penny to drop, I really suggest you read Story Engineering by Larry Brooks, or we did an interview which is really brilliant, so I'll link to that in the notes as well. But if you get the idea of scene, it totally radically changes how you write, which I think for me personally was for the better, because thrillers are a sort of cinematic thing. So I'm always interested in how other people write scenes, so if you could leave a message in the comments with some of your tips, that would be fantastic. Thank you. I'm j.f.penn from thecreativepenn.com.